Okay, let's unpack this intriguing development out of Texas. There's a massive project underway going by the almost sci-fi name of Stargate.
Right, Stargate. It sounds dramatic, doesn't it?
It really does.
Hmm.
And while it might not involve actual wormholes, the ambition here is arguably just as, well, far-reaching. We're talking about fundamentally reshaping the future of artificial intelligence.
It's fascinating because this isn't just, another incremental step. What our sources, particularly that recent Bloomberg Originals piece, reveal is a project aiming for a huge leap, a quantum leap, really, in the infrastructure behind AI.
Exactly. And we're getting this glimpse from the key players, Sam Altman at OpenAI, Masayoshi Son from SoftBank, and the infrastructure giant
Big
Oracle.
names, big investment.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, you might be thinking, why should this project in, like, the middle of Texas grab my attention? Well, that's precisely what this deep dive is all about.
Yeah, we want to give you that comprehensive understanding quickly and efficiently.
Right. Our mission today is to dissect the sheer scale, the almost unbelievable ambition, and, well, the potential game-changing impact of Project Stargate.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, what Sam Altman really highlights is the astonishing and maybe somewhat unexpected rate AI is being adopted.
Yeah, he talks about GPT-4 and ChatGPT. Their arrival wasn't gradual, was it?
Not at all. It triggered this explosion in demand. So Stargate, in essence, is the concrete result of realizing that our current computing capabilities, they just can't keep up,
Hmm. He pointed out their initial focus was the huge compute needed to train these models.
which is massive in itself.
Right. But the real surprise, he said, was the sheer enthusiasm people had for actually using them.
So it shifted the problem.
Completely. It transformed the challenge from a big computing task to what Altman suggests could become the biggest infrastructure project in history.
Which sounds like hyperbole, but maybe isn't.
Exactly. And when whispers of Stargate first came out, there was definitely some skepticism, wasn't there? The scale just seemed almost impossible.
Well, it does make you think about how we perceive truly transformative innovation. Sometimes the sheer size makes it hard to grasp.
Yeah.
But Stargate is a very direct, very forceful response to a real and growing demand. As for the name, well, apparently it was an internal code name that just stuck.
That happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The story goes that an early layout for one of the data centers kind of looked like the set from the Stargate show.
Huh. A bit of sci-fi inspiring. A very real-world project. Okay, let's really dig into the physical size of this. Abilene, Texas. That Bloomberg video really paints a picture.
It does. As recently as June 2024, it was just empty land, Texas landscape.
And now,
Now it's a hive of activity, a major construction zone.
what really gets me is the plan for the buildings themselves.
Right. The scope is huge. They're planning 8 separate buildings, all housing these interconnected GPU clusters.
8 buildings. And the number of chips.
Well, the first phase alone could have up to 400,000 chips.
400,000.
Yeah. To put that in perspective, that would make it one of the largest known compute clusters anywhere on the planet.
And the speed. I mean, the speed they're aiming for is just astonishing.
Mid-2026 for the first phase to be operational.
That requires working around the clock, right? 24/7.
Absolutely. It's pushing the limits of how fast you can even build something like this. And the person overseeing it is Chase Lockmiller, founder of Crusoe.
Crusoe. Maybe not a household name yet, but they're right at the center of this massive build.
And the Abilene site itself apparently has another code name, Project Ludicrous.
Ludicrous speed from
It
Spaceballs.
seems like it, a nod to just how fast they're trying to move.
It's interesting. Lockmiller's background is pretty diverse, isn't it?
Yeah, from AI trading on Wall Street to Bitcoin mining near oil fields, that experience managing energy-hungry computing seems pretty relevant here.
You'd think so. Okay, let's talk money, because the numbers here are just staggering.
Right. We're looking at $100 billion committed already. That's from OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank.
100 billion. And that's just so far.
Exactly. There are hints it could grow to maybe $500 billion across multiple sites eventually.
Wow. And Masayoshi Son at SoftBank sounds incredibly bullish on this.
Very. He emphasizes that shared vision of achieving AGI, artificial general intelligence. That seems to be the main driver for pouring in this kind of capital.
But it does raise that question.
Oh.
Even if you had $1 trillion right now, could you deploy it profitably in the short term?
That's the big economic question, isn't it? Altman acknowledges that uncertainty, but he seems confident they can generate substantial value from the first, say, $500 billion.
And that Bloomberg footage really shows where the money's going. It's not just numbers on a spreadsheet.
No, you see the actual work. Forklifts, cranes, dump trucks. They mentioned 155 vehicles just moving dirt at one point.
Just moving dirt. And the workforce. It's huge. Not just locals.
No, they've brought people in from all over Texas, even other states. It highlights the massive human effort involved.
So technologically, what's the big shift here?
Well, it's this move away from traditional CPU-based data centers towards these GPU-focused AI factories, like Stargate.
And the key tech enabling that.
NVIDIA's Blackwell GPUs, their latest generation, really engineered for these intense AI workloads.
And the product, as Altman puts it.
Intelligence itself, that's what these factories are designed to produce.
And the demand for that intelligence is clearly there.
Yeah.
That example of ChatGPT's image generator.
Oh yeah, that was a great illustration. Altman mentioned they had to pull resources, even slow down other features, just to handle the surge when it launched.
He joked about GPUs melting, right?
Right. Just a colorful way of saying they were running flat out. But it shows that direct link, more compute power, lets you offer more advanced AI, handle more users.
Which brings us to maybe the biggest challenge, energy.
Oh, absolutely. AI data centers are incredibly power hungry.
How hungry are we talking?
Well, think about this. One rack of the latest GPUs can draw maybe 130 kilowatts.
130. Compared to what, historically?
Maybe 2 to 4 kilowatts 20 years ago. It's a massive jump. And even a single ChatGPT query uses something like 10 times the energy of a Google search.
Wow. So you absolutely need locations with tons of power.
And ideally cheap power,
Yeah.
which is where Abilene comes in.
Right, the wind power.
Exactly. Lots of low-cost, clean wind energy. And interestingly, they actually had a surplus there. Local demand hadn't quite caught up.
So Stargate can basically soak up that excess. How much power are we talking for this site?
The projection is 1.2 gigawatts.
1.2 gigawatts. That's hard to even picture.
It's enough to power a huge number of homes or electric cars. It's just an immense amount of energy.
And then there's the cooling issue, right? Traditional data centers use a lot of water.
They often do, yeah.
Yeah.
Evaporative cooling can use significant amounts of water, which is a big sustainability concern, especially somewhere like Texas.
So what's Stargate doing differently?
They're planning to use a closed-loop cooling system. Basically, the cooling water stays contained within pipes. It gets cooled, circulated, cools the equipment, then goes back to be cooled again. It drastically reduces the need for fresh water.
Which is pretty crucial in that region.
Very crucial. Makes the whole operation much more sustainable from a water perspective.
Now, Stargate isn't being built in a vacuum, is it? It's part of this bigger AI race.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You've got Microsoft, Meta, Google, Amazon, Elon Musk's XAI. They're all pushing hard.
And the ultimate goal for many is AGI, right? Artificial General Intelligence.
That seems to be the long-term prize everyone's chasing.
What about international competition? We hear about big data center builds in, like Malaysia or Japan. Is that direct competition for Stargate?
The sense seems to be it's more about overall growth in the sector. Many countries see these AI data centers as vital infrastructure now.
So a rising tide lifts all boats, kind of.
Perhaps. Different companies have different strategies, different strengths, but the overall trend is just this massive global build-out of AI compute.
Let's talk about the local side, the human element in Abilene. The mayor seems pretty positive.
Yeah, very enthusiastic. He talks about the town's history, their desire for growth. They offered pretty significant tax incentives to attract Stargate.
Like an 85% property tax break.
Right. But the city's view is that the remaining 15% on potentially billions in investment will still bring in millions in revenue for schools, roads, services.
And jobs. That's always a big question.
It is. The construction phase is creating thousands of jobs right now, over 2,200 workers on site already.
But long term, for running the place.
That's less clear. These places are highly automated. The mayor suggested maybe a few hundred, perhaps up to 1,000, jobs in things like security, maintenance.
And what about the residents? How are they feeling?
It seems like a mix, based on the reporting. Definitely excitement about jobs, about Abilene being part of something cutting edge.
But also concerns.
Understandably, yeah. Concerns about AI itself, what it means long term, and about the resource use energy water, though that closed-loop cooling might ease the water worry a bit.
There's also this local hope, isn't there? That maybe Stargate could help diversify the economy away from just oil and gas.
Right. And maybe even create opportunities that could help with some local social issues, like addiction, by offering different kinds of jobs.
Zooming back out a bit.
Yeah.
Geopolitical factors. Tariffs. Supply chains.
Yeah.
How does that play into a project like this?
It's definitely a factor. Rising tariffs or instability could increase costs, and the supply chain is incredibly complex.
Where do the materials come from?
While things like aluminum and steel often rely on China, and the chips themselves involve this intricate international network, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan.
So there's risk there.
There is,
Hmm.
which leads to this argument for diversifying where this AI infrastructure gets built,
Mm.
encouraging more development in allied countries to make the whole network more resilient.
Makes sense. Okay, looking ahead, there's still a lot of uncertainty. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
OpenAI reportedly had big financial losses in 2024, so the long-term profitability of these massive bets is still a question mark.
And the big unknown. Will just adding more compute guarantee the AI breakthroughs everyone hopes for?
That's the fundamental question. We're also seeing more efficient models emerge, like DeepSeek. And there were reports, I think, about Microsoft maybe pausing some data center plans.
Right, so there's this debate about potential overbuilding.
There is, but the counter argument, the one Altman seems to hold, is that the bigger risk is actually underinvesting, not building enough infrastructure.
He compares it to the interstate highway system.
Yeah, something huge that nobody could predict all the benefits of, but which ultimately spurred massive growth and unlocked things people hadn't even imagined.
So it's speculative but optimistic about the long run.
Very much so. It acknowledges the unpredictability, but holds on to this conviction about the profound impact AI will have.
It really underscores that deep belief in AI's potential, doesn't it? Even with all the risks and unknowns.
Absolutely. Committing this kind of capital. It shows a profound belief that the potential rewards are just immense.
So to kind of wrap up this deep dive, Project Stargate is this monumental gamble on where AI is heading,
It really is, driven by the seemingly bottomless demand for compute.
characterized by staggering money, an incredibly fast build, and some really innovative tech solutions, especially around energy and cooling.
The scale and the sheer audacity of it. You can't overstate it. It genuinely feels like it could be a pivotal moment in how AI evolves, setting up the foundations for, well, who knows what comes next.
And that brings us to you, listening. It's worth thinking about the implications, isn't it? This massive build-out.
What opportunities does it create? What are the challenges, energy, resources, the societal impact of ever smarter AI?
Yeah, and what are those big uncertainties we still face as this technology just keeps accelerating?
That Stargate name, it
It's
feels
fun.
apt, like building a portal to somewhere new.
Yeah.
Altman's wormhole analogy comes back to mind.
Right. What previously unimaginable possibilities might this huge AI infrastructure actually unlock?
It's definitely something to keep thinking about as this whole story continues to unfold.